Hey there, friends and enemies. JoPaWrites here once again, and today I have another brand new episode of The Writer's Thoughts. This is my podcast where we talk about all the gaming, geeky, streaming, fun things that you know, love, and so do I. And I am super excited for this one because we have a longtime friend of mine, Artifice, on the podcast, and he is someone who I've been able to talk to a lot about a variety of games that are outside of some people's normal wheelhouse, which I love because there's so many fantastic games out there, and too many focus on just the big heavy hitters. So I'm stoked to have him on. How you doing, man? How is things? How is life?
Good. First of all, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. This is honestly my first podcast, so I'm kind of excited, kind of nervous, but also ready to maybe talk about sweet coding. We'll see. Um, as far as life is going, I really can't complain. I have my health, I have my wife, and I have my video games. So,
I feel that for sure. That's how I feel. I know COVID has turned a lot of the world upside down, but all told, I'm with you on that one. Now, let everybody know on socials where they can find you, where they can follow you for your thoughts on some of these various things that we're going to talk about today.
so unlike most folks, I don't have a big social following. I don't even social media a lot, but for those of you that do want to follow me, it is I am Artifice on Twitter, and I am a very sporadic streamer on DLive. I recently left Twitch, but you can find me there at dlive.tv/ I am Artifice. I generally post when I'm going live, but I don't really have a schedule right now, so most of my thoughts end up on Twitter, thoughts, rants, complaints, stuff like that.
Yeah, I got you. And it's something that I know, like you said, you don't have a big following, but I think you found a niche, found a spot that I think deserves more attention. And that's something I was definitely excited to bring you on and talk about some of these things because too often there's so many great games out there that are underrated, overlooked, and just bypassed because they just don't get the mainstream attention, the mainstream appeal that a lot of people are looking for. And the two of us have gone back and forth, and you showed me so many fantastic games that have popped up that I would never have even heard about. We actually played some dope games back in the day together that I haven't seen many people play at all. So it's like I love that. I love the fact that we're able to do that. We're able to bring some different type of content and different type of games to the forefront because it's just sad to say it's not too prominent out there these days.
Um, that is definitely true. I don't know, it's a double-edged sword. Like, you want to play the big games because you want to be in the know, you want to be at the cool kids table per se. But also, there's a lot of smaller games that go unnoticed, and because they go unnoticed, you know, they it all ties to sales, and then okay, do we even want to make a sequel or things like that? So there's a lot of deserving titles that are out there that don't get the recognition, and I kind of enjoy finding those and maybe sharing them with those that actually, talk to me and follow me and are willing to take a risk. I mean, because sometimes I can approach a person, tell them about a game, and they're completely like, no way. Um, but in the same breath, I had those people that are like, I'll give it a try. I don't have anything else to do. And then 20, 30, 80 hours later, they're like, oh my God, this is one of the best experiences I've ever had. So that's where I sit. Mm, you've introduced me to a few things as well, too. So, like you said, it's kind of give and take, and I've had a blast playing them with you.
Yeah, that's I think that's the key, and it's unfortunate that we don't see some of these games get sequels or get a little bit more recognition because in the long run, the more solid games that are out there, the better it is for gamers in general, right? No one has enough time to play all of these awesome titles, but the more that are out there, the more folks going to get introduced to games because not everyone's going to be an FPS guy, not everyone's going to be a JRPG guy, not everyone's going to be a battle royale gamer, I should say. And so
Right.
having those different options, the different types of games for everybody is super important. And that's something that as I've got older, I have kids, I have a wife who plays sporadically. It's been important to see the variety of games that can kind of bring people together and get them talking that might be outside of the norm. So, first off,
No,
go ahead.
like you said, they're out there, and like you said, they cover all kinds of spectrums. I mean, I'm minus the kids. I'm in the same boat as you. I have a wife that plays sporadically when she's and not having her face in a book.
That's my wife too. She's a big reader.
So it's always good to have something out there for everybody. And hopefully, once we get out of this pandemic, and we can start visiting people and hanging out at people's houses again, it's always good to have something for those that, oh, I'm a casual player, or I like stuff, but sometimes they're a little too hard. So it's good to have a good catalog of options.
Yeah, 100%. Now, sticking along that route, games are being remade like crazy. We're going to talk about the Final Fantasy remake, 7 remake a little bit later. There are remakes coming out constantly. Diablo 2 is coming out this season or this year as a remake. I wanted to talk to you about what games, smaller games, RPGs, older games, whatever the case may be, that you think deserve a remake and would actually, especially these days with some benefits from better graphics, faster loading times, bigger worlds, what games would benefit the most from something like a full remake or remaster?
So, of course, my obligatory answer here is going to be Suikoden.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you're listening, Konami. We want Suikoden remastered. We want Suikoden 6, even if we are getting Ayuden Chronicles. Aside from that, oh man, where to begin? If I were to go down the JRPG path, I would probably say, personally speaking, I would love to see a Legends of Dragoon remaster. I think that game would benefit tremendously from some updated mechanics. Not a complete change, not a complete overhaul, because its fight system was ahead of its time, and it did a lot of stuff that other RPGs weren't willing to try. But at the same time, it had its hiccups. So I think some nice fresh paint on that would be great and would sell tremendously. I would also like to see, I don't know, I know the series itself had a long run, but my personal favorites were Breath of Fire 3 and 4. I would like to see those. I don't even want to say remastered. I would just love to see those get ported.
Yeah.
Nintendo's picking up a lot of stuff, so those are definitely, and since Breath of Fire 1 and 2 are already in the SNES Online, I mean, it would be easy for Nintendo to pick up Breath of Fire 3 and 4, so I would love to see those. Going outside of the typical Artifice box, I think another title I would love to see remastered is Siphon Filter. That was a huge favorite of mine. Also, maybe Winback. I don't know if you're familiar with that one. That was an old PS2 one.
Yeah.
Eargeese. I think Eargeese would be good, though. Some would argue that you kind of have that in the Dissidia saga now, though Eargeese was a little ahead of his time. And while I'm talking about caged fighters, I would definitely love to see them bring, oh man, what's the name of it? Oh, I just went blank.
Yeah, that'll
Maybe you
happen.
can help me out here. How familiar are you with fighters?
I'm not too much, although one remaster that I've seen mentioned on Twitter recently that I would love nothing more than to see back is Def Jam Fight for New York, or a remake or a remaster of that. I feel like in this day and age, that would be absolutely unbelievable.
That
And
would feel huge.
oh my god, it'd be so great. You could even do a crossover with that and like wrestlers, like actual wrestlers from today, in that
I
mix as
never thought of
well.
that.
It would be, I think it'd be gangbusters. It'd be so great. And I've seen a little groundswell for that, and I think that's one that would do very well. I'm a huge fan of Suikoden as well. I think that series is fantastic. Again, like you said, for those who don't know, Ayuden Chronicles' spiritual successor from the creators of Suikoden is coming, and it's got its own publisher. It crushed it on Kickstarter. I'm super excited. It's one of those games that from my youth I absolutely love, and I'm excited to see what they do with that one. But that being said, I loved the original story. Just like you said, Legend of Dragoon, all these games. I know we have successors out there, but I want the original. I want to go back into that world because you never know. If they do very, very well, maybe we get another sequel, another spin-off
Exactly.
down the. I want to jump back into that world. That's why I want these remakes and remasters, as long as they're done well. Some of them we've seen are ported forward. Like Secret of Mana was one that struggled a little bit because they changed the music. Although you could play the old school music, and some of the combat they just didn't change enough, so it felt so dated that it wasn't a lot of fun anymore. But
Hmm.
with the Switch, with PC options, with consoles, there's so many things out there. The other game that I would really want to see remastered or updated would be Ogre Battle. I'm a big fan of the tactics games,
Okay.
and that's one that I just really dug how the compared to Final Fantasy Tactics, it felt like it had more options for me as far as building my team. Final Fantasy Tactics seemed to like it was a fantastic game. It's one of my favorites of all time, but it seemed to lock you into what the meta party would be a little bit more than Ogre Tactics, which I loved because I just felt like there was more options to mix and match my team a little bit and still be successful. But those I think are the main ones that I had been thinking of. Did you remember the one you were talking about, or
Yeah, Bloody Roar.
Bloody Roar? Yes.
That would probably sell. I mean, I honestly think that could do Street Fighter numbers if they did a remaster and did it right, depending on what studio picked it up.
Yeah. No, there's
Um,
so many options out there, and it's a shame that it seems like mostly the big titles are the ones that are really getting the focus and the attention on these remasters. Because again, I am super stoked for Diablo 2 remaster. I actually never played Diablo 2, and I've heard it's the best one in the series. I played 3 a bit, but I was late to the party on that. So I really want to dive into Diablo 2 and get myself ready for Diablo 4 once that fully drops.
I definitely have to keep an eye out for it. Fortunately, I haven't gone down the path of a Diablo yet, but I've seen. I know. I remember you were playing three, and I have a lot of friends that have played three, but they've all pretty much said the exact same thing that you've said, that three is good, but there's never going to be another Diablo 2. Diablo 2 kind of set the bar for that series. So I'll definitely have to keep an eye out on that. And while we're talking about remasters and kind of piggybacking off of what you said and kind of your likes, it wouldn't be me if I didn't give you a recommendation. I would definitely check out the Landgrisser 1 and 2 remake. I don't know if you followed that at all,
I have
but
not.
it is okay. So it is a tactics type RPG. So it's a strategy RPG, kind of like Ogre Tactics, Final Fantasy Tactics, and all of the ones that you seem to like. It's kind of what made them go the route of Final Fantasy Tactics. I believe it preceded Final Fantasy Tactics, but it's that kind of game. And so recently, wow, we are in a new year. So maybe about a year ago now, NIS ported over Langrisser 1 and 2. And they kind of went the route of what you said you were hoping for, with not changing too much, keeping it original and just kind of putting a fresh coat of paint on it. So they redid the soundtrack, but you do have the option to still play the old versions of the soundtrack as well. And also, while they redid the graphics, they give you the option to go back to the old Super Famicom version of the graphics as well. And so it's nothing. It wouldn't be groundbreaking today, but back then the story was so compelling that it became a cult classic, and I don't think it ever really made it West. It was more so of a Eastern RPG, not even Eastern. It might have been Germany as well.
Gotcha.
But I would definitely say check that out, and I think you would enjoy it. I need to finish it. You know my backlog, but that's for a whole nother podcast. But
Oh man,
I
we
would
could talk
definitely say
about
check it
backlog.
out.
Talk about backlogs for days, man. It's crazy. I see so many games. I mean, honestly, so that's part of why I started posting playthroughs on YouTube, and that it's specifically because it forces me to play through these titles to the end and not get 75% in, and then just lounge around min maxing and messing with my party, and then all of a sudden I never finish the game, and I wonder where the time went.
But keep the gloves up, Joe. You don't have to attack me on a podcast.
Wait, I'm attacking myself, but I get that for sure. And I'm a guy who likes a lot of different games, so I'll be playing 10 different things at once, and it'll be crazy. So, uh,
Same.
but yeah, and for those listening, I will say this: if you're looking for a modern take on one of those tactical RPGs, Fell Seal Arbiter's Mark is a smaller title that I was turned on to, and they're actually I think they're pretty local to me as a developer. It's a small team. Oh, that was a well made game, and I really enjoyed that one. So that's another one to check out for sure. Are there any other titles you can think of that you might want to see remade or remastered? Maybe it's something different, like a Turok or GoldenEye or something that we haven't seen in a minute.
Let's see. Let me see if I can go through my backlog
I
of
know there's so many.
retro stuff. You come out hitting the hard questions early, don't you?
Hey, that's what we do here, man. I just gotta come in, talk about what the people want to hear, get things going. So,
Um, Remasters not necessarily, but it may be because the original game is close to my heart. I would love to see another Super Mario RPG because that was
yeah.
actually the game that introduced me to RPGs.
Oh wow.
Um, yeah, I mean, so I probably played them on Nintendo, but being young, I had no idea what an RPG was or what it even stood for. Um, but then I had a friend that introduced me to Super Mario RPG, and I was like, man, this game is Mario. I like the mechanics. I like how it's turn-based. Let me go out and see what other games I can find. And I'm getting ready to age myself here, but after I finished that game, I asked my mother to take me to Blockbuster. And
Ha! Oh man, good old Blockbuster.
and so even though I had played that on the Super Nintendo, the PlayStation was in its life stage, maybe a couple of years in, and there was a game there on the shelf titled "Here We Go Again, Sweet Coding,"
Yeah.
and back then they had the cases in front of the game, so I picked it up, I looked at it, I was like, oh, this kind of looks the same layout and everything. Sure, I'll take it home and try it, and I got home, got it in, and aside from just the mechanics being what I was looking for, the story is what gripped me.
Mm-hmm.
And then, as I did more research and got further into it, I'm like, man, you can recruit 107 other characters,
Yep.
all playable.
Yep.
Um, and that alone, at the time, that was the first one, so I didn't know what to expect going further into the series, but just everything that they did right then. Because I want to say Suikoden might have been the first game to introduce a playable cast that big. Now,
Yeah.
granted, nobody ever played with all 108 characters in a single playthrough. I mean, it's a series that I replay almost yearly, and I still don't think I've touched every character in that game.
Yeah, for real.
But no, so I think I would like, me personally, I would just like to pay homage to Super Mario RPG and maybe get a Super Mario RPG too. I know we've had the Mario and Luigi games, which have kind of been RPGs in the Paper Mario, but just a legit successor to, or a legit sequel to Super Mario RPG would be great.
Yeah, that's the thing is they don't have to be remakes or remasters, but like you said, a sequel, successor in the same universe, even a game in one of that follows different main characters. Like that was one of the nice things about Suikoden 2 is that it wasn't just the tale of one character evolving. It was like you got to see the paths of so many, and you had to like figuring out how to unlock all the characters, all that kind of good stuff. So stuff like that is again what I want to see more of. I want more of these games and their universe to be fully fleshed out. And that's why I'm also excited to see that we've got like more mainstream games, but other games like Halo, like The Witcher, all of these, and that's off the books, but all these other universes getting fleshed out in like movies and TV and stuff like that. Not all of them hit, right? But let's say comic books or books, I would love to see some of these other universes as well get some more time in the universe, whether it's a game, whether it's a book, a comic series, whatever the case may be, because I feel like the more you learn, the more excited you can kind of get. You know what I'm saying? Web comic,
Right.
something like that. So
So fleshing out is definitely a big part to it, especially in RPGs.
yeah, no, 100%. Now, sticking on that path, Final Fantasy VII, they just announced that the game is going to get the upgrade for the PS5, and we're going to get a DLC essentially for Yuffie. Which, have you played the Final Fantasy VII remaster at all?
It's another one of those that are started, but I'm hoping to finish this year.
Yeah, but
I know a lot. I know a lot about, well, enough about it though.
I
So
mean, we've Final Fantasy VII is obviously a classic, right? But what I'm excited about is they're doing exactly what I would, if you're doing a full remaster, they're doing exactly what I would want to see, right? Not getting into any spoilers. They're fleshing out some characters we may not have seen as much. They're giving separate DLC to other paths that we might not have seen as much of
hmm
when the original dropped. You know what I'm saying? The game looks fantastic. And it feels like how a current generation Final Fantasy VII should feel, and that's one thing I really like. They kept the tone of the the map and the area, so that's what has me so excited. I'm excited to see what they do with the main characters, all the characters, and obviously we've got some story points coming in the future that we all know from Final Fantasy VII in the past that are going to be hit so much differently. And I just wonder how much the heartstrings are going to be pulled with that game for sure.
I know what you're talking about. Um, I don't know. So full disclosure, when Final Fantasy VII Remake was initially announced, it toyed with my emotions. And I say that because it took what was the norm and just completely rewrote it. Some aspects I loved, some aspects I still struggle with, and that mainly being the fact that it's an action RPG.
Yes.
Um, but touching on what they've done that I'm enjoying, like you said, without being spoilerish or touching on stuff that can lead to spoilers, the fleshing out of some characters. I mean, since you've played the original, so you know with the DLC, this character, well, Yuffie, since they announced who the character is, this may be the first time that some have even seen Yuffie. Um, so this is a combination of, okay, we're going to introduce this character that may be new to you, but for those of you that she's not new to, we know you wanted to know more about her because there was a whole gray area behind her, even with what they did flesh out in the original. And so that's what I'm excited for. The video got me hype. I mean, I'm like, okay, so they're going to explain a lot of questions I'm sure most of us had. Um, but like on the other side, I'm just knowing what's coming. I'm impatient. I'm like,
Yes.
just give me the game. Just put it all out at once and give it to me.
Yeah.
And then on the side of, I don't know whether to be excited or mad, the kind of gray area, it's because of how Yuffie was handled in the original. I can see and understand why she is DLC, but my concern is what other parts of the story are we going to have to pay for in addition to the part two and part three or part four, or however many parts they're going to release
Yeah.
the main game in. So But aside from that, I'm definitely excited. Like you said, the game looks great. Um, Fortunately, those that weren't able to get it when it first released, they can now get it if they have PlayStation Plus, so they're able to experience the remaster.
Yep.
Um, I don't know what they said or if they said the Yuffie DLC is going to be PS5 exclusive. Hopefully, that's not the case. I wouldn't think they would do that,
I don't think it
but
is. So from what I've read, and this is just uh, basing off the initial reports, it sounds like the Yuffie DLC will be purchasable for everybody. However, there will be a PS5 specific upgrade that you can buy that will include that DLC. I've seen that on Amazon already, a listing for it. It's actually the game, and it's with the new DLC title, and it's for sale on Amazon. So you can buy that specific version of it. But I think it's going to be a DLC available for all consoles. And what they had mentioned too, the director had mentioned on in an interview is that the reason that they're doing this now is they had some additional content ready that was available for the last gen console, the PS4, but for future iterations, for future Final Fantasy VII Remake episodes, it's all going to be on the PS5 to try to take advantage of that, and allow it to all process in a like more of a game in a smaller footprint. Because right now, like obviously Final Fantasy VII Remake had the first part had 2 discs for
mhm.
PS4, and that's almost unheard of. So
No, that
it's
makes sense.
yeah, it's one of those things that I like them pushing out the game so far. It's like we might not see the end of the story for 10 years from now or whatever the case may be, but hopefully as they progress onto the fully onto the PS5 or it sounds like they might add it to PC eventually as well. Although I don't know if it's actually already available for PC. I haven't looked into that since I am a console gamer myself. But that's just what I've heard, and I'm with you 100%. I was wary at first on the change to action RPG. I like action RPGs, so it doesn't bother me that much. But it was kind of jarring when I first played it. But I'm also like, okay, I want to get to the heart of the story, so I hope they don't drag it out for too long. You know what I'm saying? We get 7 episodes, and I'll have to replay it every single year that another one comes out. You know, so I remember
Just
where I
remember,
was
yeah.
because I know the story from beating 7, but I will have to remember where I left off in between each update. So we'll see what happens with that one.
Yeah, that's definitely the gift that's going to keep giving with the remaster. Like you said, for those of us that know the story from 7, because everything is getting so fleshed out, we are still getting new material as well as the people that don't know the story from the
Yeah.
original 7. So it's exciting.
Yeah, I'm definitely stoked. I can't wait to see where it heads, and hopefully we have more news on that sooner than later, and we get part 2 because I'm itching for it myself. So maybe that's another thing I need to put on YouTube for a playthrough. You know. Um, Now moving on, we've got a lot of games coming out this year. We don't even know all of them, right? There's so many unknowns as far as what's going to be hitting this year because we haven't hit the time of the year where they announce all the fall releases. But we do know a bunch of them that we've talked about that are super exciting. I wanted to hit on a few of those. And the first one is Deathloop. Now, this game is such an interesting concept, and if they pull it off right, is going to be a blast, especially playing with 2 players. Because I think it's a 2 player game, correct? Potentially,
Um,
or
I
is
would
it?
have to fact check that.
I got to
I'm
look
not
that up.
100% sure.
It might be pure solo. I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, uh, for those who you don't know, Deathloop is you're an assassin character. You got to eliminate various characters in the game, and while you're going through, you can kind of rewind time, and there's a lot of interesting aspects, stuff that I haven't seen in games before. But then you also have another And this is what I don't know. I don't know if that other character, I haven't seen this, is a full NPC or if you can add a co-op or a PvP option to that. I'm not sure on that one. Anyway, but yeah, it's got a lot of interesting mechanics. What drew you to Deathloop? Why are you excited for it?
Honestly, Deathloop almost completely missed my radar. It was my wife that pointed it out to me. Um, she was like, "Oh wow, this game was announced for the next gen consoles and it looks pretty cool." So during one of the showings, when they were talking about the system itself, they actually showed it, and I was like, "Oh wow, this is really interesting." Like you said, it's just the whole concept for one, um, and for two, it's me personally, it's kind of the representation aspect.
Mm.
Um, but it's it seems like it's going to be well, while it's going to be something new, it's taking influences from some other successful games out there. So, just from my understanding, it's going to have some of his influences are Prey. I don't know if you've ever played that. Um, Dishonored is another influence of it, and so yeah, I mean it seems to have good bones, and like you said, if they can pull it off properly, I'm honestly going to say it could be game of the year potential.
Yeah, it's one of those that I think looking at it might not gather the mainstream appeal, but I think a lot of people who actually dive into it are going to love it. And everything that I'm seeing is saying that uh, there is two sided multiplayer. So it's called or it's not called. Basically, how it works is you can play it as a solo game, but you can also play with one person trying to prevent you from fulfilling your contracts as the assassins.
Oh, that'll
So
be fun.
yeah, that's one of those games where the cat and mouse and the different abilities that you might get looks fantastic. Like you said, the representation looks good. The characters look fun. It kind of reminded me of like Sin City comic book style a little bit in the way that it presented itself. Not necessarily exactly right in the art style and everything, but it just felt fun and different. And that's something that I'm really looking forward to because unfortunately we do get a lot of games that kind of mirror each other. And this is one which is such a different concept that I'm excited to see how it works out.
No, I mean, yeah, I mean, if it can be pulled off properly, it's going to be great. That said, the elephant in the room is the fact that it's being developed by Bethesda, and some Bethesda games take 1, 2, 5 updates to get right.
Yep.
So while I'm hoping everything is great out of the box, maybe some companies have learned from other ones who shall remain nameless right now.
Yeah.
Um, at the same time, I'm hoping it's not a situation of if it is rough when it first releases, people instantly giving up on it.
Yep.
You have to understand that Bethesda's going to Bethesda, so it may take a couple of updates to get it to where it's going to be that enjoyable aspect that they were shooting for. But I'm definitely looking forward to it, especially now that you told me about the multiplayer and what it consists of. I have so many friends and my own wife that are probably looking to thwart me or dab me in the back at any moment.
Yeah, I feel like that's such a fun concept for multiplayer, and it's something that I saw done a little bit with like some of the Assassin's Creed games, but it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't executed perfectly. So it was like, um, it could have been a lot better. You know what I'm saying? Where you're basically versus another group or another player and trying to prevent them from achieving their goal by any means necessary.
Right.
And that's what I love. I love the objective based. So it's like, yeah, you're trying to go hunt for each other, but like there's so much more intricacy there than just like straight up PvP fighting, straight up shooting each other and who can shoot each other the best. Because I want to sneak around. I want to plant some traps. I want I want to
Right.
I want to do some shenanigans. I want to kill people in the wildest way possible in that game, and that's gonna be my goal once it drops. Is like if I can find a way to lure somebody into a trap and kill them with shenanigans. Oh my god, I'll play that game endlessly.
That, and I'll just be happy to take my potato aim into a game and still have fun. So,
Well, that's the thing. Anytime you can make multiplayer PvP type games more accessible to folks who don't play traditional shooters, I think that's a good thing. So I hope that's something that they do, and I'm excited to see where they take that. So
definitely.
next up, we'll talk about Returnal. This is another one I don't know as much about. I've seen some of the trailers. That's one that's coming up fairly soon, but I love the developer, and I think I see a lot of potential in that game. What drew you to Returnal? Why are you excited about that one?
Returnal was honestly a surprise for me, and it's because it was a surprise to me because of the developer. I mean, don't get me wrong, Resogun was a great game. I put I don't know how many
Oh,
hours into that on
so much
the
fun.
PS4. Yeah, but it's good to see them stepping out of what they are probably mainly known for. Like they do have a few other games that are good, but I want to say Resogun may be the one that they're most known for because that was the free game with the PS4. So to see them going from that and coming into Returnal, and Returnal looking as good as it does, um, and again, it's another one of those concepts where part of it we've seen, part of it we haven't. I think the aspect that really captivated me is that if you die, you really can't memorize the level because upon death, the whole level shifts.
Yeah,
The level shifts, the location of the enemy shift, how many enemies are in a specific room shift from what it was previously. So you're 100% relying on your skills and abilities that you've learned and cultivated throughout playing. And I think that can bring that can bring that surprise and fun factor because it won't get too stale. I mean, I know I can't be the only one that has been in the middle of a game and it's like, okay, I died again. I can get past this part with my eyes closed, but when I get back here, I don't know what to do. Now
yeah.
you have to stay on your toes because everything is totally going to change from what it was previously, which is going to be a gift and a curse, but probably fun nonetheless.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's funny because I was definitely not expecting this from Housemark, which is the developer. And like you said, Resogun was fantastic when it first dropped. But the one thing that I'm curious about is it says everything I've read about it. It says it's a psychological horror shooter, and
Hmm.
reminds me of some games I've seen before, but like nothing firm. It's got like
Yeah.
little bits and pieces from things. That being said, I'm not a horror guy, so there's a very good chance that I'm gonna check this out through other people playing it first before I dive in because I don't do horror very much unless somebody bribes me to do it. And this one
No,
though,
I'm the
it
same way.
it does look good, and that's what's kind of has me leaning towards maybe this is the one I bite the bullet and I dive in because any game that'll be a lot of fun and bring that level of challenge by changing it up, variety, all that kind of stuff, with the changing levels and everything. If there's some depth to it, if progress in the game feels good, if the storytelling is good, all that kind of good stuff, it's something that I'm definitely gonna have to play at some point. So I am very curious. It's not something I was expecting to be interested in because it's definitely against or not my normal cup of tea. But I don't know, man. And the more I've seen of it, the more I'm kind of like, oh, maybe I should dive in.
And no, I'm in the same boat as you. I avoid horror like the plague. I mean, it was literally written in my wedding vows that I have to give my wife one horror movie a year. It is in the
Oh,
vows. That's how much I avoid it.
oh no.
Um, so, you know, but also I think words matter. So to me, there's a difference between horror and psychological thriller. I'll
Yeah,
play the hell out of a psychological thriller. I will not play a horror. Well, I'll play it vicariously through somebody else.
yeah,
So the aspects of this game, I see, I see a little Condemned. I don't know if you ever played that one. I see a little Alan Wake.
Alan Wake, yeah,
Um,
that's one I was thinking.
yeah, so those type of games I can get behind. It's like, okay, this is a psychological aspect. I know that they're trying to play with your mind versus something jumping out of a corner, going boo, and me screaming for 20 minutes. Um, that I don't get from Returnal. But now that I say that, it's probably going to scare me
Yeah,
to death.
that's what. I
If that's the
so
case, I'll just hand the controller over. So,
I tend to do a lot of research when I look into games because there's so many out there that I want to make sure that I find ones that are good fits, or I might wait a little bit till it goes on sale if it's not something I would normally play, just so that way I know I'm getting.
mhm,
I'm not worried about spending full price on a game that I'm not gonna touch for that long.
mhm.
But anytime I see horror in a description, it said horror, not thriller, so I was like, I'm gonna have to see how this goes because, like you said, so I've had games that don't even have horror in them, like Warzone, for example, put jump scares in their boxes for the Halloween event, and
Oh, that video was great.
oh my god, I damn near shit myself. It was the worst. But I don't know. It depends on what the game is and how they handle those types of things. But speaking of, this is not a horror, but speaking of something that's going to be scary for a lot of people, let's talk about Back for Blood. This is a survival horror game, it said online, but it's not much of a horror game in my opinion. It's more of a zombie, right?
Yeah.
Type game. So I don't find those. Resident Evil is the only one. The early Resident Evils are the only ones that I find like have jump scared me of the zombie games. Most of them
Yeah,
are
we don't talk
just
about those.
oh I walking down the hall and getting grabbed for the first time by a bunch of zombies changed my whole life.
Everybody's story with Resident Evil starts with a hallway. I kid you
Oh
not.
my
Mine
god.
was, again, going back to Blockbuster. I heard Resident Evil was the big game that it came out, so I was able to catch them when they got their stock in. I'm like, sure, I'll rent it, no big deal. So this was Resident Evil 1. It took place in the huge mansion. You get your first couple of rooms and you're like, oh, a zombie here, a zombie there. Then you see this long hallway, and it's at that moment you realize, what did I get myself into? So I'm walking down the hallway, and this dog jumps through the window at me and starts
Yeah.
chasing me. It was at that moment I turned the game clear off, didn't save, put the game back in the case. I had my mother drive me back to
Nope.
Blockbuster to return it. Exactly. It was a big no. And I want to say I ended up with Clay Fighter after that.
Yeah, that's about what happens. I mean I played Resident Evil 2, I think it was, in the pitch black at night. And
You lose a bet?
what?
I said, did you lose a bet?
No, I was like, oh, I'm gonna see what the hype is about. I'm gonna fully immerse myself. Nah, man, I was like, this is the worst idea I've ever had in my entire life. I was scarred for weeks as a kid.
Oh, man.
So talking about for Blood, what has you excited about that game? Why are you looking forward to that one? What? It's one I don't know as much about as far as compared to the other two.
Okay. So, Back for Blood, starting from the beginning, it is actually done by the team that did Left 4 Dead. Um, I can't really go into logistics on why they left or why they just couldn't do a Left 4 Dead 3, but they said, I think it had to do something with licensing and the name. So they said, cool, we'll pretty much bring our sequel out, but we'll call it Back for Blood. And they kept the number 4 in it in the title. So it's done by the team that did that. And I don't even want to talk about how many hours I put into Left 4 Dead 2 or 1, but 2 specifically. But so once they announced, Back for Blood, I was like, oh, I'm sold. I don't have to see anything. It's the same team that did Left 4 Dead 2, which I still play to this day. And they're giving us a new game with better graphics, but similar mechanics. It's a 4-person horror game, as they call it, but it's pretty much one of those zombie horde games, like you said. So the concept of the game is you start at the beginning of the level. You have to fight your way through the level, but you get massive hordes of zombies. Um, and if it's going to be anything like Left 4 Dead, your weapons may not just be guns. Like in Left 4 Dead, you had katanas, you had frying pans. It was a real situation of if you could grab it, you can swing it.
Nice.
Um, but they also gave you goals. So and one of the goals that will forever stick with me is for whatever reason, there was a little garden gnome in Left 4 Dead 2, and your goal was to get this gnome from the beginning of the level to the end of the level. And the way they do levels is you go through so many waves or whatnot, you have to make your way through to get to a safe room. And in a safe room, that's where you can restock your ammo, healing stuff as well. But you have to get this gnome through these rooms as well. So it'll be a situation of, okay, how do we want to attack this? Do we want one person holding the gnome at all times while the other three are fighting for their lives? Do we want to hide the gnome, take care of the hordes, then go back and get the gnome? I remember us having situations of hot potato with the gnome, and the most scarring aspect was after 2 or 3 days, we finally got this gnome to pass the last checkpoint, getting ready to go into the last one, and it was a situation where we played hot potato, and my friend threw the gnome over the gate, so we had to start the whole mission over.
No shot.
So it's
Oh,
yeah, so it's a game that is fun, but it also makes fun of itself.
yeah, that's good.
Um, but it's one of those situations where if it's a long day of work, long day of school, or whatever, or you just need to play something brain dead, it's not
Literally.
as yeah, it's not as well, I don't want to say as intense, but I've noticed with Call of Duty Zombies, you have to do a little more thinking. With here, it's just get from point A to point B by any means necessary.
Yeah.
And so that's really what I'm looking forward to. And hopefully this time I don't have to have two consoles for me and my wife to play. Because I'm going to lose that battle if that's the case.
Yeah. No, that
But
makes
no,
sense.
it's something you will like, I believe.
Yeah, I'll definitely check it out. I've only recently gotten into zombies a bit more in COD. Um, but they have an open world mode now that's actually a lot of fun, and it's like not really a whole lot of thinking involved, which
Hmm.
is nice. Easy to level the guns, fun to find like Easter eggs or challenges. But like if you don't want to have to do any of that, it can be a good time. Uh, and yeah, I've played a couple zombie games like that in my time, and I've enjoyed them.
I
So
think we
I'm
played
definitely
one together.
yes,
It was Aliens though, wasn't it?
yes. That was Aliens. What was that one? Oh, I forget that.
Uh,
Uh,
yeah,
uh,
so
uh,
that's
uh,
pretty much Left 4 Dead and Back for Blood, except it's zombies.
gotcha.
That type of mayhem.
Well, Earthfall, right? It wasn't that the one we
Yes,
played?
that's
Yeah,
what it was.
Earthfall. I was so hyped about that game, but it just did not. So, that's the one question I always have with these types of games. Luckily, the Left 4 Dead creators understand how these games work, but you have to have variety of missions. You have to have fun or silly or challenging side quests and stuff to keep people engaged. Because the problem with some of these games is once you play them for a little bit, they get so repetitive that it's like, why am I still playing this game? I'm just playing the same thing over and over and over again. And yeah, like you were saying, because they are experts in this field, we shouldn't have that many problems with it.
That and it all comes down to who you're playing with. I
Yep.
mean, granted, they had a situation of they can throw people in your lobbies, but it's definitely something where you just want to go in with a bunch of buddies and you don't want to have to worry about leveling up a gun or what your attachments are. It's like, okay, I don't really feel like shooting. I'm about to beat a zombie with a skillet. Let's go.
Yeah.
So
No, 100%. Sometimes you just need shenanigans. That's uh
that's it.
that's how I feel about a lot of games. Now, I'm definitely looking forward to it now that you mention it because I feel like it's one of those games that if I can get the right crew, I would like it a lot. I don't play a ton of zombies games personally. Like I said, I've started playing COD Zombies a little bit, but I haven't traditionally been into zombies except for one that I've been playing that I had played for a while and I really loved was Dying Light. And
Okay.
uh, Dying Light 2 is supposed to be coming out this year, but now I haven't heard anything for a while. And I want that game so bad. Um, Again, playing multiplayer zombies with zombie activities with your friends, the parkour, the tension, all of that was so much fun with that game. Did you ever play Dying Light?
I actually missed the Dying Light bus, but I want to say I do have it. So now that you mentioned, I mean, I'm always down for stuff like that with a friend, especially if it has a survival aspect to it.
Yeah, I'm
So
I'm about like I know survival games have recently come back into the forefront for people. Whether it's games like Rust that have kind of seen a resurgence for a bit, whether it's other types of survival games with friends. I think I know Valheim, the Viking survival game.
mhm.
That's a big one right now. I feel like anytime you can get high stakes but also high possibility for fun with friends, it's a good recipe for a game, right?
It
Everything
is.
else can be added in. You can figure out the setting, the whether it's zombies, whether it's Vikings, whatever the case may be. But your main point should be making sure people can play game together and have a good time, have fun. So I'm really hopeful that that these games become more and more prevalent and we get more options so that way because I want more games to play like that because on console unfortunately there's not a lot of those options like Rust isn't on console, Valheim's not on console. um yeah, so if we can get more survival games there, I would very much be excited about that.
Yeah, yes, you're right. I'm starting to see it be where the more the survival side where it's okay, we're just going to give you a map and tools, and then you and friends decide how you want to play is on PC, and more so on the console side, you get kind of the more story integrated survival stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but I think what we're going to see, if I read correctly, and we're starting to see it with other games, is that stuff like Back for Blood is going to be cross console, cross play, which would be great,
Yep.
especially in a situation for Back for Blood. I mean, honestly, if they can make that cross play, that would just be awesome. But also, you're going to have the PC community that mods it because that's what they do, and
Yeah.
they've made the modding community is what has kept Left 4 Dead 2 going for so long. But on top of that, there were some situations where the creators themselves were like, we haven't touched this game in 8 years. Here's some DLC. Have fun with it, So
Yeah.
it's like they were always watching, and maybe they were getting ideas from the modding community, which is another reason why I'm excited for Back 4 Blood, just to see what new stuff they implement. But yeah, like you said, right now the market is either battle royales or survival stuff that you can play with friends.
Yeah, for sure. And are there any other games that you've kind of seen that might tickle your fancy that might be releasing this year? I know some options that I've seen that I don't know enough about yet. There's Hood, Outlaws, and Legends. I saw a trailer for this. I think it was the the last PlayStation like reveal, and it looks like what the Assassin's Creed PvP should have been, but like as a full game. So it's stealthy. You're assassins and thieves and stuff, and that one sounds like it could be pretty good. But again, it depends on how it fits. Um, we had Kina, the Bridge of Spirits. That one looks pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know what else. I don't know what else is out there so far that I've seen that I am 100% all in on. There's superhero games like Gotham Knights. I actually am really excited to play
Same.
a co-op game like that. That's the one thing I will say, right? Is that as much as I love RPGs, I would play some of them a lot more if they had a drop in, drop out co-op option, because I love the story, but I want to play some game. I prefer to play games with friends. So
Right.
if they just have, you already have companions in the game. If you could just have one of my friends hop in, play as one of my companions for a couple hours, and while we wanted to shoot the shit and play this game, you know, I feel
Yeah.
like that would be. It's probably not worth the effort. You know what I'm saying, for the developers to include multiplayer and have to deal with servers and stuff like that. But ideally, stuff like the Gotham Knights is what I would love to see more of, because I feel like I would invest way more time in a game if I can do it with a buddy. And even if we can't play the whole game together, that's one of the reasons I actually played a lot of Far Cry. I'm not necessarily huge into Fall Guy or Far Cry, but I had friends who were, and running around the map as a squad in those games was a blast. Same thing with I think it was Ghost Recon. What was that one that I played? The one before Wildlands. That again, that was a lot of fun because I played in a 4-man unit. We played together all the time. We didn't have to worry about who was where on certain progress.
Was it Future Soldier?
Uh, I don't remember. Maybe it was Wildlands. I'm trying to think which
I
order.
think you're talking about Wildlands. Was it the open world one?
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah,
Yeah, that was
because
Wildlands.
yeah, that was Wildlands. Breakpoint was the next one. That's the one that I didn't play. That because
Mm-hmm.
we tried the demo and it was so buggy that we just never picked it up. But yeah, wow, games like that. Like if you give me an open world or even a story and you allow me to play with my buddies, oh, I'm set. Like, say no more. That's why I like looter shooters so much, and it's not always necessarily the looter aspect. I do like some of the RPG elements because I am an RPG fan, but it's the ability to do all of the content with my friends that's so appealing to me personally, you know?
No, I agree with you. I would probably play more stuff with friends if it was story based. So, like you said, Wildlands, that was a blast with friends, in my opinion, because one, the story was good, and two, I can actually play the story with friends. So stuff like that, stuff like Gears of War. If you give me those type of shooters, I'm all in. Um, and much like you, Far Cry really didn't intrigue me until I was able to play it with somebody. Um, Same with Resident Evil. So I played Resident Evil 5 in and out just because I could play it with another person. Um, so like you said, if you give me a story and the ability to play with people, then I'm all in.
Yeah. It's, another game that's like that, which funny enough, I'd probably get a lot of hate on the internet from the hardcores from, is Bloodborne. I am so cheeks at those kind of super difficult games, but the ability for my friends to jump in and help do bosses with me, they gave me a lot of crap because they were like, "Hey, why don't you try to beat this boss yourself?" I'm like, because I don't have 2 hours to spend timing this boss and learning the moves, and then only to have a harder one 2 hours later. No, that's not my life. That's not what I'm about. So, you can tell me to get good all you want, but it's probably not going to happen. Let me hop in there, enjoy the fun story. Let me be a badass, right? Once I get all my
Hmm.
gear and stuff, and then I'll go back and try some of the bosses at that point. Once I know
No, I
what the
get it.
heck I'm doing. So, yeah, that's just me personally. I don't ever put the games like I very rarely do New Game Plus or anything like that because especially solo games, I just don't enjoy playing solo. Like, I'll regrind an entire game if I can play with a friend. I probably
Right.
won't do that too
Solo.
often solo because I like you said, the backlog. It all comes back to the backlog. I have so many games that I want to play. It's hard for me to justify playing through some of them multiple times when I've already beat them and I really enjoyed the story, really enjoyed the game. But that's just my personal take on it. So I know a lot of people aren't like that, but what are you gonna do?
Yeah. So going back to your initial question, some of the stuff I'm looking forward to, um, this one I'm probably going to be put on that same boat of get out of here with you. I I'm hoping that come the Avengers release for the now current gen, but we'll still call it next gen for the sake of confusion, fixes the issues with the one that's out for PS4 and Xbox and makes it feel like a completely new game and one that, works without reason. Because when the game worked, it was fun. But at the same time, it goes back to that whole repetitive thing. So hopefully we get one, something that functions, and two, something that feels new, that is in fully enjoyable. So I'm kind of looking forward to that release.
Yeah.
Another one that I really don't know too much about, but it seems like it's going to be cool, is called Pray for the Gods. I don't know if you've heard about that one for PlayStation. So the vibes it gives is part Horizon, part Eco, and part oh man, I just went brain dead again. Did you ever play the game for PS2 where you were pretty much out in the desert looking for titans and you had to climb them and slay them?
Are you talking about Shadow Colossus?
Yes, it gives me a Shadow of Colossus vibe. So I'm looking forward to seeing more on that. And then, like you mentioned, Kena, I've been sold on that since they first announced that one. Um, Definitely looking forward to Ratchet and Clank. What else is there? Origami 2. I don't know if you ever played the first one. But that game it's a stealth ninja game. And it, like, hard would be you taking it to an easier level. But at the same time, the story was good and the abilities you learned were cool. And I'm actually I really like the artwork in it. So I'm looking forward to the second one. There's God of War, which I know you can relate to.
Oh, I love that. Oh, the first one was my jam.
You mentioned Gotham Knights already, but also Suicide Squad. I'm definitely looking forward to that one. And then, if we go to the Switch side, the title that they've given it now for the demo is Project Triangle. But it's done by the team that did Octopath Traveler.
Yes, yeah, I saw that one.
I lost massive hours to, and the demo is out now for Project Triangle, and I would definitely recommend you check it out. It pays a lot of homage to Ogre Tactics and Final Fantasy Tactics.
Okay.
But they said that they upped the difficulty on the demo just so you're able to experience the mechanics more, but that game is brutal. I think you'll love it.
Gotcha.
And while they've announced stuff slowly, there's really not a lot to talk about because, you might have just seen the name in passing. So I'm actually excited about this next gen / current gen of games that are coming out because it looks like we are getting some new stuff as well as some stuff we're already comfortable with. So I think it'll be fun and it'll be a good year.
Yeah, that's it's always a good mix when they do that. I'm also, you mentioned Avengers. I'm still a fan of the game. I didn't have a lot of issues that other people had as far as connection, all that kind of good stuff. But I do think the content was a bit repetitive. The story was actually one of the best for looters, in my opinion.
It was.
The story DLC they keep coming out with, Kate Bishop was really good. Hawkeye looks like it's going to be really good. But until they have a raid, until they have other enemy types and versatility, if they are able to do that, if they actually follow through, and then we get Hawkeye, Spider-Man, if we get the Black Panther DLC they've been teasing with a raid and some stuff like that, and we get some of these other enemy types that they've been teasing in the game but haven't made an appearance, like the Kree or the Skrulls, I think the game could really pop off and you'll look back a year later and be like, wow, this game is actually what we thought it would be. But the key is, unlike Anthem with Just Shut Down, they have to keep making more progress with the game. If they keep a team dedicated to it, they keep updating the game, I think it'll be similar to a Warframe, similar to a No Man's Sky, where you look back and you're like, okay, this is the game we wanted it to be, and now it's finally here, and I'm excited to play it. But I definitely got my money's worth on that game, just from the story and upgrading my characters, and from the free DLC for the Kate Bishop and now Hawkeye. So I don't know. I'm
Right,
with
like
you.
you said, the game has potential, and the story was great. But unfortunately, the story could only carry the repetitiveness so far. I mean, how many times did you go back to what seemed like the exact same
Yeah.
location, or just reskinned to do the mission you literally did 5 minutes ago, just at a harder difficulty?
Yep.
So it it was a good, it had good groundwork, but like you said, if they can dedicate something to it, throw some raids in there, I'm sure that alone would breathe life back into it, as well as keep up with the stuff that they're promising us. Like you said, a year from now, we could look back at it and be like, okay, this is what we were expecting when we first bought it. I mean, because if you remember, um, No Man's Sky was rough to begin with to like year two.
Yep.
And then once they got that massive update, No Man's Sky became a completely different game that is just so enjoyable now.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that Avengers will get that same treatment. If not, we've got a ton of other games we're looking forward to. That who knows? Who knows how it's going to turn out? I'm excited. I know I've got Outriders coming in April. Either way, gaming is so good right now, and I feel like people are underrating how many good games are out there and coming out. So I'm excited to see where they go and what's happening in the future, because it's only going to go up from here, in my opinion.
Definitely. Worst come to worst, they did announce Beyond Good and Evil 2, so I always have that to look forward to.
100%, 100%. Anyway, man, hey, thank you so much, man. The hour flew by. I appreciate talking to you as always. It's such a blast, man. We have so much in common, but also you introduced me to so many new things. Again, let everyone know where they can find you, socials and all that. And this podcast should be a number one advertisement on why you should be following my man, Artie.
You're gonna make me blush. But no, thanks for having me. First and foremost, it was fun. The hour did fly by, and I feel like even though we talked about so much, there are still so many games I forgot to talk about.
100%. That's always how it goes.
Yeah, for those of you listening, you can find me on Twitter at IamArtifice, and you can catch a sporadic stream here and there, though I'm trying to get better, at dlive.tv/IamArtifice.
Hey, man, thanks so much for being on. It's always a good time chatting with you. Everybody listening, thank you so much for tuning in, stopping by, and hanging out. As always, make sure you hit that like button, you hit that heart, you subscribe, you comment, all that kind of good stuff. Whatever platform you're listening to this on, YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, whatever the case may be, it helps me out tremendously. It shows that you guys want to see more episodes. It also will keep you informed as I drop a new one every single week. So thanks as always. My name is JoPaWrites. This has been The Writer's Thoughts, and I'll catch you all later.